Hi, I'm Mark Small. This is Civil Discourse Now for September 29th, 2022. I thought I'd address a thing that a lot of people don't have to deal with. It's Department of Child Services, DCS. It used to be called Child Protective Services, CPS. Now, in some parts of Indiana, it's still called that. I haven't figured out why specific counties have kept CPS as a moniker, but Department of Child Services is the agency that is charged with enforcing the state's interest in children to the extent that they interpose themselves if there are allegations of child abuse or neglect. Let me be more clear. Let's deal with a situation that's very clear, and that is a parent has custody of her or his child, and that parent is smoking marijuana in their living room. The child isn't present. That person is smoking with a friend. Somebody calls in a complaint and says there's drug use in the home. Police come to the door, knock on the door. The person goes, yeah, I'm smoking a joint. What's wrong? And it's against the law. And it is in Indiana. We're still lagging behind the rest of the country. And a lot of places take that seriously still, enough that the person is arrested. Or they might be only given a summons to show up. But here's the problem. They have a child in the home. And if a complaint is filed, or if a neighbor, for example, was the one that called it in because they were smoking pot, they might have called that into DCS. DCS will do a 310, I think it is the form. It's a complaint where somebody's called in a complaint. They'll go out and investigate. Here's what's tough. You've got DCS and you've got police. They're both from the state. So if somebody calls in a complaint on a parent and the parent is charged with something, the child doesn't even have to be in the home. If there's presence of an illegal substance in the home, then that can give rise to a petition called a Child in Need of Services petition. This is sounding bad already, right? Well, the good part is, in some ways, that if you're middle class, you probably never hear of this because basically it's very rare for middle class people to have to face a CHINS petition. Now, the bad part is if you're not middle class and if you're not white, but white people still have CHINS petitions brought against them. It's just that the odds really go up if you're not white. So let's say that you have a petition filed against you and you're poor. You go to court and you've got to be aware that there are two things going on. One is a criminal prosecution if they file charge or charges, and the other is the CHINS petition. And the ones they're trying to take your liberty. Even if you're put on probation, they're impinging your liberty interest. This one, they're trying to take your kid, because a CHINS petition is the first step in the process of a possible termination of parental rights. If that scares the hell out of you, it should. It's the state trying to say, we're going to take your kid. Now, that's the bad part. The good part is that if you qualify and you're appointed a public defender, in most instances, public defenders on CHINS and TPRs in this state are good. They bust their butts. But you still got the state on the other side, and you're dealing with a prosecution in a criminal matter, and those are separate, very definitely separate. The standard of proof on a CHINS petition is preponderance. And keep that in mind. That means more likely than not. To get termination of parental rights, they have to have clear and convincing evidence. So if they can get things in for evidence on the CHINS, that helps them out if they're doing a TPR later. But if they can get evidence from you, and evidence means a statement, and they can use it in the criminal prosecution, That's golden for them. So let's think about it. The DCS caseworker, family case manager, comes out to do an assessment. You got cited for marijuana possession. They want to come out and talk to you at the home. Get a lawyer. If you haven't been appointed one already yet by the court for chins, get a lawyer. If you haven't been appointed one yet already for the criminal matter, get a lawyer. Before you let them come in, you want to have that lawyer there. And before you make a statement, you talk to a lawyer. Don't talk to your Uncle Joe, who knows a lieutenant on the police force 2 counties over. Talk to a lawyer, because the minute you open your mouth and give them information, that's free evidence they don't have to work for. And they're not looking for a home run. Give it to them, they'll love it. I confess, I did the whole thing. They love that. All they want to know are elements they can use to make their case. So before you give a statement to DCS, remember they're the state, just like a police officer. You want counsel. And if they say, well, fine, we're going to pull your kid out of your house, they're going to do that anyway. If that's a threat that they're throwing out right then it's like they're using your kid as a hostage. Get somebody and talk to them about what's going on. You don't want to give a statement in the chins proceeding that can be used against you in the criminal case. Remember that. So, is that cheerful? Because what happens, and this goes down the road, and I'll talk about it later, in the 1990s, Governor Mitch Daniels here in Indiana thought it would be a really good idea to privatize services for everything. So DCS, CPS then I think, started privatizing things. How did that work? Well, basically people had been overworked in the agency, saw that they could go to work for their buddy over here who had a different agency, only it was private. And instead of charging X dollars, they'd charge X and a half dollars over there. And they'd have shorter hours and better benefits. How does that work? Well, let's see. So you go to DCS and they're going to do an assessment of you. Well, who do they do that with? Well, that agency. That agency might determine that you have a substance abuse problem. You can go to that agency for it. Now they're billing the county the whole time, and they're making money off of it. And you're having to run around between providers. You might have 3 or 4 different providers. Remember, I said, normally it's poor people who are going through this. Normally they have a problem trying to get transportation around. A lot of times they live in counties where there are distances between providers. It sucks, as does privatizing things. Mark Small, Civil Discourse Now. I'm candidate for Indiana House of Representatives, State Representatives, District 86. I'm pro-choice, pro-environment, anti-gun, pro-civil rights, pro-voting rights, Republican candidate. Not many people can say that with those adjectives. Have a nice evening. I'll talk to you later.